In the endless dark of space, far from the bright centers of power, there was a lonely station on a forgotten asteroid. The station was old, broken in many places, and almost dead. Only one man lived there. His name was Captain Rylan. Once he had been a soldier, a hero even. Now he was nothing but an outcast. Rylan sat in silence, staring at the stars through a cracked window. The universe was wide and full of life, but to him it felt empty. He remembered the words that followed him everywhere. Monster. That was what the aliens called him, and even some humans agreed. He had fought in wars that were too brutal, battles that ended with too much blood. His enemies hated him. His allies feared him, and his commanders exiled him. But Rylan did not regret his choices. He had fought to protect his people, and if that made him a monster, then so be it. Still, the loneliness was heavy. The station's corridors echoed only with the sound of broken machinery. His food supply was limited, his days were silent, and his nights were full of old memories. One night, as he sat with a glass of recycled water, the silence was broken. The old communication system on the station came alive with a sharp sound. At first, Rylan thought it was an error. The station's systems were unreliable, and signals often glitched. But then he heard a voice. Distress call. This is the Council of Veyran, requesting immediate assistance. Coordinates attached, Rylan frowned. The Council of Veyran was one of the most powerful alien alliances in the galaxy. They hated humans, especially him. Why would they send a signal that reached even this dead station? He leaned closer, replaying the message. The voice was trembling, desperate. The words carried fear. This is not a drill. We are under attack. Unknown enemy? Please respond. Rylan's hands tightened around the console. Unknown enemy? Aliens usually fought each other, but very rarely did they sound so afraid. What could frighten the Council of Veyran? And why would they send their cry for help to the man they once called a monster? He thought about ignoring it. After all, they had cast him aside. They had left him to rot in silence. Why should he care about their troubles? But something inside him refused to turn away. He was a soldier. No matter how broken, no matter how unwanted, the instinct to fight and protect still burned in his chest. He downloaded the coordinates and stared at them for a long time. The location was far, in a sector known for strange rumors. Entire fleets had gone missing there. Explorers whispered about a shadow in the stars, something that consumed ships without leaving wreckage. The Council had always denied these stories. Now they were begging for help. Rylan prepared his old ship, the Black Fang. It was scarred from countless battles, patched together with whatever parts he could find. The engines roared to life like a beast waking from sleep. As he strapped himself into the pilot's seat, he felt a familiar rush, the feeling he thought he had lost forever. Back into the fire, he muttered to himself. As the ship lifted off the station, Rylan's thoughts turned dark. He knew this was not just a simple call for help. Something bigger was moving in the galaxy, something even the proud Veyran Council could not face alone. And if they had called for him, the outcast, then the danger must be greater than anyone could imagine. Hours passed as the ship cut through silent space. Rylan's eyes scanned the stars ahead, but his mind was trapped in memories. He remembered the last battle that destroyed his name. He remembered the fear in the eyes of alien civilians, the anger in the voices of his commanders. He remembered how they all agreed on one thing. Humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. Monsters, they called them. Monsters who had no place in the civilized galaxy. And yet here he was again, flying into their desperate cry. The irony made him smile, though it was not a happy smile. Finally, his ship reached the edge of the coordinates. At first, the sector looked normal. Stars glowed, planets drifted, and silence filled the void. But then he saw it. Wreckage. Massive fields of broken ships floated in the darkness. Some belonged to humans, most to alien fleets. Their pieces spun slowly like the bones of dead giants. And in the distance, beyond the wreckage, Rylan saw something that made his blood run cold. It was a swarm. Not ships, not life as he knew it. A storm of black machines, moving together like a living shadow. They glowed faintly with red light, thousands of them spreading like a disease across the stars. His ship's scanner beeped and screamed warnings. Power signatures off the scale. Energy so strong it twisted the readings. For the first time in many years, Rylan felt fear. He whispered, "What in the void?" "Are you?" As the swarm turned, as if sensing him from across the stars, Rylan knew the truth. The galaxy had been right to call him a monster. But now a greater monster had come, and perhaps only a human could face it. The wreckage drifted silently, broken ships turning slowly in the dark. Captain Rylan guided the Black Fang through the twisted remains. His scanners kept warning him of power spikes, shadows moving where nothing should be. He ignored the noise. His eyes were fixed on the swarm in the distance, that endless sea of black machines glowing with red light. Then through the static, the distress call repeated again. Council of Veyran. Requesting help. Immediate response. The voice was weak now, full of fear. Rylan adjusted the signal and traced it to a single surviving cruiser, half destroyed and barely holding together. Its hull was ripped open in places, fire still burning inside. No crew should have survived that damage, but the signal was coming from there. With a sharp breath, he pushed his ship closer. The cruiser was alien-made, a design he knew well. Years ago, these same ships had fired on him without mercy. Now one of them was begging for his help. Docking clamps locked, and Rylan pulled on his old combat suit. The armor was scratched, dented, but still strong. The helmet sealed with a hiss, and he grabbed his rifle. He didn't know what he would find aboard, but one thing was certain. The swarm would not leave survivors for long. Inside, the air was thin and full of smoke. Emergency lights flickered weakly. He moved through ruined halls, stepping over alien bodies. Most were dead. But in the control chamber, he finally found them, a group of Veyran officers, wounded and terrified. They froze when they saw him. Their wide alien eyes glowed in fear. One of them whispered the word they all used for him. Monster, Rylan did not answer. He simply lowered his rifle and spoke through his helmet speaker. You called for help. I'm here, speak. The highest-ranking officer, a tall Veyran with silver markings across his skin, struggled to stand. He coughed, his voice trembling. We had no choice. The swarm is unstoppable. We fought with everything we had. Entire fleets are gone. They devour our ships like fire devours paper. Rylan's jaw tightened. He had seen the swarm from afar, but hearing it in the alien's voice gave the threat a new weight. What are they? He asked. The officer shook his head. Machines. Endless machines. They do not speak, they do not stop. They adapt. Every time we change strategy, they learn. Every ship we send only makes them stronger. Soon they will reach the core worlds. They will consume everything, another officer hissed angrily. Why speak to him? He is human, a beast. His kind almost destroyed us in the last war. The commander snapped back, his voice breaking. And yet he is here. Do you see anyone else answering our call? Do you see the council saving you? Rylan stayed silent, watching them argue. His mind was racing. Machines that adapt, fleets wiped out, the galaxy in panic. It explained why the distress signal reached even him. The Veyran would never call a human otherwise. Finally he spoke. Why me? The commander's silver eyes locked on him. Because you fight like no one else. You humans are reckless, savage, merciless. You do not surrender. That is what we need now. We need a monster to fight a greater one. The words cut deep. They were not meant as praise, but as necessity. They did not trust him. They did not want him. They needed him. For a long moment, Rylan said nothing. He thought of Earth, far away, quiet and unprepared. If the swarm reached there, his people would be wiped out just like the Veyran. The Council might hate humanity, but the machines did not care about hate. They would kill everything. I don't fight for your council, Rylan said at last. His voice was cold. I don't fight for your people either. But if those machines are heading for Earth, then I'll fight. Not for you. For us, the commander gave a slow nod. He knew that was the best answer he would get. Before more could be said, the cruiser shook violently. Red lights flared, alarms screamed. The swarm had found them. Rylan's visor lit with warnings as the enemy closed in. Thousands of machines swarmed toward the wreck, their red eyes like a tide of fire. Your ship cannot escape, the commander said bitterly. Rylan almost smiled beneath his helmet. Mine can. He tapped his comm, sending a signal to the Black Fang. Engines roared outside and the old ship unleashed its weapons, tearing through the first wave of machines. Explosions lit the dark like falling stars. Move, Rylan ordered the aliens. If you want to live, follow me. They hesitated, but fear pushed them forward. Together they raced back through the burning corridors, chased by the echo of metallic claws. At the docking bay, Ryland's ship waited with its ramp open. He turned, firing bursts from his rifle to hold back the machines. Sparks and metal shards filled the air. The Black Fang cut through the void like a wounded predator, its old engines rumbling, its hull scorched from battle. Inside, silence hung heavy. The rescued Veyran officers sat huddled together, whispering among themselves in their strange language. Their silver eyes kept darting toward Captain Ryland, fear mixed with curiosity. He ignored them. His focus was on the navigation screen. The ship was heading toward human space, a place he had not seen in many years. The thought twisted in his chest. Would they even allow him back? To most humans, he was no better than the swarm itself. An outcast, a disgrace, a monster. But the swarm was coming, and if Earth was unprepared, it would burn like the wrecks he had just seen. Ryland clenched his jaw. He would face whatever came, even if it meant walking into the hands of those who hated him. After hours of silence, the Veyran commander finally spoke. His voice was low, almost uneasy. "Do you believe your people will fight, or will they run like ours?" Ryland glanced at him. "Humans don't run. Not when it matters," the commander gave a bitter laugh. "Yes, that is why you terrify the galaxy." No more words were exchanged. The rest of the journey passed in silence until the Black Fang reached the edge of human-controlled space. Almost immediately, alarms filled the cockpit. Human patrol ships surrounded them, sleek and sharp, their weapons locked on Ryland's battered vessel. A voice came through the comms, cold and commanding. "Unidentified vessel. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." Ryland switched on the transmitter. His voice was steady. "This is Captain Ryland Kane, formerly of the Terran Navy. I request immediate contact with command." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, harder now. "Captain Ryland Kane is an exiled war criminal. Your presence here is unauthorized. Shut down your engines or we will open fire." The Veyran survivors stiffened. Their commander whispered, "They would kill their own? Even you?" Ryland did not answer. His hands hovered over the controls. His instincts screamed at him to fight, to break through the blockade. But deep down he knew he could not fight his own kind. Not now. Finally another voice broke in, a voice he recognized. "Ryland, is it really you?" He froze. It was Admiral Holt, his old commander, the man who had once cast the final vote for his exile. "It's me," Ryland said quietly. "And if you want Earth to live through what's coming, you'll let me speak." The comms went silent again. The patrol ships stayed in formation, weapons hot. Every second stretched into eternity. Then finally Admiral Holt spoke again. "Bring him in." The Black Fang was escorted through layers of human defenses, past massive battle stations and fleets standing ready. But even as he saw the strength of the Terran Navy, Ryland knew it would not be enough. Not against the swarm. When he landed on the main command station, soldiers surrounded him instantly. Rifles raised, armor shining. The Veyran officers were pulled aside, studied like dangerous animals. And Ryland himself was led into a great chamber, where the High Council of Humans sat in judgment. The room fell silent as he entered. Old enemies, old allies, all stared at him with the same expression, fear. Admiral Holt rose from his seat, his face hard as stone. "You should not have come back, Ryland." Ryland met his gaze without flinching. "And yet here I am. Not for you, not for forgiveness, for survival." He tossed a data drive onto the Council's table. The lights flickered as holograms filled the air, images of the swarm, endless black shapes devouring fleets, tearing through planets, turning light into shadow. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the bravest commanders paled at the sight. "That," Ryland said coldly, "is what's coming. Your fleets won't stop it. Your walls won't hold. They don't want territory. They don't want slaves. They want everything. And once they're done with the Veyran, Earth is next." Murmurs spread through the chamber, voices rising, arguments starting. Some called him a liar. Others whispered that only a monster would know how to fight such a threat. Admiral Holt slammed his fist down, silencing them all. His eyes burned into Ryland's. "And what would you have us do? Trust you? The man who burned cities? The man we cast out?" For the first time, emotion cracked through Ryland's voice. "I never fought for myself. I fought for humanity, and I'll do it again. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to trust me. But if you don't let me lead, you will all die." The council erupted again. Some shouted against him. Some demanded he be executed. Others begged to listen. The chamber was chaos. Through it all, Ryland stood silent, waiting. He had spoken the truth. The rest was not in his hands. Finally, Admiral Holt raised a hand. His voice was low, dangerous. "Very well. The council will decide. But know this, Ryland Kane. If you fail us, if you betray us, if even one word you speak proves false, I will see to it that you are erased from history forever." Ryland nodded once. "Then I better not fail." As guards led him away, he caught sight of the Veyran commander across the hall. The alien's silver eyes met his own. For the first time, there was no insult in that look. Only the weight of shared fear. Outside the chamber, the stars burned cold and distant. The swarm was coming. And humanity's only hope was the monster they had cast away. The human council argued for days. Some wanted Ryland executed. Others demanded he lead the defense. In the end, fear of the swarm decided for them. Humanity could not afford pride. They gave Ryland a small fleet, old ships, damaged crews, and soldiers who did not want to serve under him. It was not a gift. It was a test. If he failed, they could blame him. If he succeeded, they could take the credit. Ryland knew it, but he did not care. He stood on the bridge of the Black Fang, his hands behind his back, staring at the ships following in formation. The Veyran commander and a few survivors had joined him. They too were outcasts now, distrusted by their own council. Together, they formed a broken alliance of men and aliens who had nowhere else to go. The mission was clear: intercept the swarm before it reached the border colonies. As they neared the sector, his fleet grew restless. Young officers whispered behind his back. Veterans stared at him with cold hatred. Ryland did not explain himself. He gave no speeches, no promises. He only gave orders. When the swarm finally appeared, the humans understood why. It came like a storm, thousands of black machines moving as one, their red eyes glowing like rivers of fire. They filled the void, blotting out the stars. The fleet's scanners screamed with impossible numbers. One young officer on the comms whispered in terror, "There are too many." Ryland's voice cut through the fear, calm, sharp, cold. "Then we will kill as many as we can. Form attack lines. Follow my lead." The battle began. Human ships opened fire, energy beams and missiles tearing into the swarm. Explosions flashed across the void, shredding dozens of machines. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. The swarm adapted quickly, shifting its formations, learning from every strike. On the fleet's bridge channels, panic grew. "We're losing shields. They're breaking through the flanks. We can't hold this." Ryland's eyes narrowed. He saw what others could not. The swarm was intelligent, but it moved like a tide. Predictable if you looked closely. "Pull back the second line. Leave a gap in the center," he ordered. A captain protested. "That's suicide. They'll cut us in half." "Do it," Ryland snapped. The ships obeyed, though fear filled their voices. The swarm surged forward, rushing into the gap exactly as Ryland expected. "Now," he whispered. The Black Fang dove forward, leading the charge. Human warships closed the trap from both sides, unleashing everything they had into the heart of the swarm. Explosions ripped through the enemy ranks, tearing massive holes. Whole clusters of machines were annihilated in seconds. For a moment, hope flickered. Soldiers cheered, voices rising across the comms. But the swarm did not retreat. It adapted again. This time, the machines latched onto the hulls of human ships, cutting through armor like knives. Screams filled the comms as crews were slaughtered inside their own vessels. "Boarding actions," a captain shouted. "They're inside the ship." Ryland's jaw tightened. This was what separated humans from the rest of the galaxy. Most species avoided close combat. Humans embraced it. He activated his calm. "All soldiers, arm yourselves. Fight them inside. Show them what monsters look like." On the Black Fang, alarms blared as metallic claws tore through the hull. The swarm poured in, shadows of steel with glowing red eyes. Ryland grabbed his rifle, storming into the corridors with his crew. The fighting was brutal, savage. Men and aliens fought side by side, blades and bullets against claws and machines. Sparks and blood mixed in the narrow halls. The Veyran commander fought fiercely, his silver skin shining with sweat and blood. Ryland moved like a ghost of war. Every shot he fired struck true, every blow was lethal. The soldiers around him watched with wide eyes, both horrified and inspired. This was the monster they had feared, now unleashed against the enemy. Hours passed like minutes. The fleet was battered, many ships destroyed, but they held. Finally, with one last push, the swarm retreated into the darkness, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The survivors stood in shock. They had expected death, but somehow they had won. On the comms, voices whispered, "He saved us." Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe he is what we need. But Ryland did not celebrate. He stood on the blood-stained deck of the Black Fang, his armor cracked, his rifle smoking. The battle was won, but the fleet was broken. Half the ships were gone, thousands of soldiers dead. The survivors moved like shadows, too tired to cheer, too shaken to believe they were still alive. On the Black Fang, Captain Ryland stood over the holomap. The swarm had retreated, but the map showed its spread across the galaxy. Every hour, new systems went dark. Whole planets had already vanished. "They're learning," Ryland said quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Next time they will adapt to everything we just used. Next time, they will crush us." The Council back on Earth called it a victory. They wanted speeches, medals, promises, but Ryland gave them only truth. "You don't understand," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We didn't win. We survived barely. The swarm will come back. And when it does, we will not be ready." The Council argued, as they always did. Some demanded more fleets. Some demanded Ryland be replaced. But one thing was clear. The galaxy was running out of time. Later, in the silence of his quarters, Ryland opened an old data drive. His hands trembled as he activated it. A hidden file glowed on the screen. It contained knowledge so dangerous that no one had dared to speak of it for decades. The truth. Humans had created something once. Long before the exile, long before his disgrace, a weapon, a machine designed to destroy other machines. But it had been banned, locked away, because it was too dangerous even for them. Ryland had been part of that project. He had seen what it could do, and now it was the only chance left. The next day he gathered his crew, the surviving Vayrans and a few human captains who still trusted him. They sat around the holomap, faces grim, eyes tired. "I know how to stop the swarm," Ryland said. His voice was heavy. "But it will cost everything." The Vayran commander narrowed his silver eyes. "What do you mean?" Ryland showed them the files. The weapon appeared as a dark shape on the screen, its design pulsing with strange energy. "Project Revenant," he explained. "A human creation. A living weapon built from machine and flesh. It can infect the swarm, corrupt them from the inside, but once unleashed, it will not stop. It will consume everything, including us." The room went silent. One of the human captains shook his head violently. "This is madness. That thing was banned for a reason. We swore never to use it." Ryland's gaze was cold. "Do you think the swarm cares about our oaths? Do you think they will stop because we're afraid of monsters?" "The only way to kill a monster is with another," the crew argued, fear and anger filling the air. Some shouted that Ryland was insane. Others whispered that he might be right. Finally, the Vayran commander stood. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "If this weapon can save even one world, then we must use it. My people are already lost. I will not watch yours burn as well." The decision was made. The Black Fang set its course for a hidden facility on a dead moon, where Project Revenant still slept. When they arrived, the place was silent, covered in dust and shadows. The facility's doors opened only to Ryland's command codes, long buried in his memory. Inside they found it, the weapon sealed in a chamber of glass and steel. It looked almost alive. A dark mass of wires and metal pulsing faintly as if waiting. When Ryland approached, it stirred, glowing with a hungry light. "It knows you," the Vayran commander whispered. Ryland's face was hard. "It should. I helped build it." For a long moment he stared at the thing. He knew what must be done. The weapon needed a host, a mind to guide it, to unleash its fury. Once connected, there would be no return. Ryland turned to his crew. "I'll be the one." They protested instantly. "No, there must be another way." "You can't." But Ryland silenced them with a look. "I was born for this. The galaxy already calls me a monster. Maybe they were right. If I must become one to save them, so be it." The room fell silent. No one dared argue again. That night, as the ship prepared for the final battle, Ryland stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the people who would never know his name, of the soldiers who had followed him even when they hated him. He whispered to himself, "Monsters don't get remembered, but maybe they get the job done." The alarms rang the next morning. The swarm was coming again, larger, stronger, endless. The final battle was about to begin, and this time Captain Ryland Kane was ready to sacrifice everything. The swarm came like a tide of nightmares. Black machines poured across the void, their red eyes glowing like rivers of fire. They stretched across the stars, endless, unstoppable. Whole fleets had already fallen to them. Now they were here, facing one broken ship, one fractured crew, and one man who had been cast out as a monster. On the bridge of the Black Fang, alarms screamed. The crew stared at the endless enemy, their faces pale with fear. The Veyron commander gripped the railing, his silver skin shining in the harsh light. He whispered, "We cannot hold against this." Captain Ryland Kane stood at the center, silent, steady. His armor was sealed, his weapon at his side. But it was not his rifle that would decide this battle. It was the weapon waiting in the chamber below, the living weapon humans had sworn never to use. Project Revenant, he turned to his crew, his voice calm. "You all know what's coming. Once I connect with the Revenant, I won't be the same. It will use me as its host, my body, my mind, and I won't survive it." The room went silent. Soldiers who once hated him now looked at him with sorrow. Some shook their heads, some whispered protests, but no one could find the words to stop him. Ryland continued, "You don't need to remember me. You don't need to honor me. All I ask is that you hold the line long enough for me to finish this. Do that, and humanity will live." The Veyron commander stepped forward. For the first time, his eyes held no anger, no insult, only respect. "You are no monster, Ryland Kane. You are the weapon the universe needs." Ryland gave the faintest of smiles. "Funny, that's exactly what monsters say before the end." Without another word, he turned and walked to the chamber. The Revenant pulsed in its glass prison, alive with hunger. As the doors closed behind him, the crew could only watch. Inside, Ryland placed his hand on the cold glass. The machine stirred, sensing him, reaching for him. He remembered building it years ago, feeding it codes, teaching it war. Now it was ready to claim him. "Let's end this," he whispered. The glass cracked open, wires snapping out like living snakes. They wrapped around his body, piercing his armor, digging into his flesh. Pain exploded through him, but he did not scream. His eyes burned red as the machine merged with him, his body convulsing, his mind drowning in fire. And then, silence. On the bridge, the crew held their breath. The holomap flickered. Ryland's vitals flatlined. For a moment, they thought he was gone. Then the ship shook. Energy surged through the Black Fang, stronger than anything the old vessel had ever carried. Systems lit up, weapons charged to impossible levels. The crew saw Ryland's face appear on the screen, his eyes glowing with crimson light. His voice was deeper now, layered with machine echoes. "I am here," he said, "and so is the Revenant." The swarm moved closer, filling the stars. The Black Fang turned to face them. "Let's show them," Ryland growled, "what monsters can do." The battle exploded. The Black Fang charged straight into the heart of the swarm, its weapons firing with impossible precision. Every shot tore through dozens of machines. The Revenant's infection spread, jumping from ship to ship, corrupting the swarm's code. Enemy vessels froze, turned on each other, burned in fire. The swarm screamed, a soundless cry across the void, as it felt its own body turning against itself. On the bridge, the crew fought to keep up, their controls barely responding. "He's burning himself out," someone shouted. "The energy is too much." But Ryland's voice cut through, steady and unyielding. "No matter. As long as it burns them with me." The swarm threw everything at him, waves of machines colliding with the Black Fang. The ship cracked, walls broke, alarms blared. But every time they struck, Ryland struck harder. His body was no longer his own, but his will still burned inside the Revenant. Finally, he reached the core, a massive swarm ship larger than a moon. Its red glow pulsed like the heart of a beast. Ryland drove the Black Fang straight into it. "Now," he whispered, as the wires dug deeper, the infection spreading faster than ever. "This ends now." The Revenant unleashed everything. A storm of fire and shadow erupted from the Black Fang, spreading through the core, tearing it apart from the inside. The swarm screamed one last time before collapsing. One by one, their red lights went dark. Ships shattered. Machines drifted lifeless. The galaxy was silent again. On the broken bridge, the surviving crew stared in awe. The swarm was gone. They were alive. But the Black Fang was burning, its systems failing. The Varen commander called out, "Rylan, can you hear us?" There was no answer. The last image on the holomap showed Rylan's face, faint, fading. His eyes still glowed, but his voice was human again. "They called us monsters," he whispered weakly. "But when the universe needed one, it was a human who stood tall." And then the signal died. The Black Fang went dark, drifting silently among the wreckage of the swarm. Later, the galaxy would remember the battle. The councils would argue, the survivors would tell stories. Some called him a savior, others still whispered monster. But one truth could not be denied when the universe faced extinction. It was Captain Rylan Kane, the outcast, the exile, the monster, who gave everything to save them all.